I'm not really sure how I'm going to start this, so we're just going to kind of jump right into it. Um, I feel like the first tutorial I did being 2 hours long, that was a bit extensive. So I'm going to try to like condense this down a little bit so it's not as like drawn out. I'll leave the timestamps to all the different sections on the screen right here. So if you're just coming to the tutorial and you see the part that you're trying to get to, then there you go. Style, we're going to just do a rocket coaster. I'll switch back and forth between this and like your RMC, just so I can kind of go over both, but we'll see. For Heartline, I got custom Heartline. The Intamin, the rocket coaster Heartline is 3.61, and then trains will do 5 trains, and then I already got a color based off of like the last, like what I showed in the last tutorial with the website that generates colors. I use that a lot. So in this tutorial, I should say, I'm gonna cover like, okay, instead of doing a lift, we're gonna do a launch coaster. I've gotten requests on top hats, so I'm gonna give this one a top hat. Gotten questions about building diagonally in certain directions and making it straight, so I'll go over that. And I've gotten a couple of them that are asking about inversions, so I'll do a few inversions. We'll see what happens, but for the main thing is going to be building a launch and a pretty well shaped top hat, and I will go over all of that. All right, for starters, let me start by saying this. I'm going to be going a little bit faster in this tutorial for the sake of just under the assumption that you've seen the first tutorial or maybe have a basic understanding of it. If not, I'll leave the description for that first tutorial in the description. And I know it's a 2-hour long video, but I have everything in the description of that timestamp to everything, and it's all labeled. So if you're looking for a specific thing that you're trying to get to or understand, it's all timestamped. So you just got to click that, and it'll take you straight to it, and it should be pretty straightforward from there. If there is any questions, then feel free to leave a comment. I get back to almost every comment whenever I can. So for starters, we're gonna usually I'll start with 4, and then we'll go to click them and make them strict. Well, right now we don't really need the G-force come, so we can turn that off. And then we're going to make sure this is slightly angled down. Boom. We're going to use the type separator to create a station. And there we go. So what I want to try to do is I'm going to make this a multi-launch. I'm going to go ahead and go over the diagonal building right off the bat. Because honestly, that is one thing that I could not find any tips, tutorials, or anything on. So I'm going to go ahead and go over this to make it, because it's extremely simple, very simple. So I'm going to make this come out of the station, and I'm going to make it turn. So we're going to make it go diagonally downward, so it's going to come out, and then it's going to go down and hit its first launch. And I will do a few elements going diagonally, and hopefully that'll make a little more sense. So we will just click this so we have the same height, and we're just going to kind of turn it in the way we want it to go. So we'll say like this. And as you see, it's not going to be straight. So if we go back and we add some roll points through here just to get kind of everything flat. And then I switch back to track view. You will see it is not straight at all. You can see where the middle line kind of shifts back and forth. So what I'll do is I'll come into here. Well, first off, let me go to the top view, and I got to find the point where I want the track to kind of drop down, because it has to have kind of a pre-drop to get into the launch. So we're going to do that. So we'll select this, go back to right view, and then just like I explained in the last tutorial, we'll hit page down a few times, click the following node, page down a couple times, and just doing this until we get to the launch. Alright, so what I went ahead and just threw this together really quick. I haven't done anything except the page up and page down, so this is just going up page up and down. So then with this we can, well, depending on how you want to do it, but for me I want it to keep this shape. So I'm going to insert a vertex between each one of these, and then that way to keep its shape and not deform at all, When I select it all, go to element and then depump it. When I depump it, it won't, like as you see it, like it literally just kind of smooths it out as the little section, because there's more vertexes for it to smooth out. So then if I go back to track view, it'll kind of dip down slowly, and we have that, and it'll turn into the first launch. But you can click on the nodes and pretty much get everything the way you want it to. If you wanted to just be a lateral turn, then go for it. If you want, okay, like this is kind of smooth, but I'm gonna get this all the way I want it to with the rolls, and then I will come back once we get ready to straighten this track out and add the launch in. Alrighty, so I went ahead and smoothed everything out in this corner into the straight section. Well, soon to be straight section. It's a little wobbly. We got a little drunk track right here, and as I explained in the last tutorial on getting smoother transitions, I have the node right here as the actual degree by clicking on no lateral forces, and then up here I have one that's off by 5 degrees, and then you have 0, and then the so on would be 0, and that would like give it that smooth snap into what the launch is gonna end up becoming. So as you see, like this whole launch part it's a little janky. So to smooth that, it's literally this simple. You would select the entire section that you want to be straight, go over to track, and then make straight 2D top. And you can see where it kind of corrected itself a little bit, and that just made the track straight. So if I go back to track view, you can see it snap in and then go straight. But this is where just adjusting comes into play, because you want it to be like, there we go. It's simple adjustments to get that. All right. So let's say this launch section is a little too long, because you look at the length of the train and the length of the track, and let's say you want it to be a forceful launch. I can do this as an example. So you take it, you can like pull back, and it's not going to be directly straight anymore. You just, same thing, click, and then make straight 2D top, track, and it's straight again. And then there you go. You got a straight section of track. Then you can take from the point where you know it won't really be affected by the vertices prior. So like not the first straight vertice in the line, but the second one. So technically it would be this one right here. You can make this strict, and then that way the launch is perfectly straight, but you already have everything that you wanted for. I'll also go over how to make straight elements that are diagonal, if that makes any sense. I will go over that. If it doesn't make sense, it will when I show it. So then if we go back to track and we just ride through it, we got that. So now, as every launch coaster, you would have a slight incline on a launch in case of any rollbacks. So the idea I have in mind after the launch, I want to do kind of a braking wave turn, as they say, or as they call it. Like the one on Lightning Rod at Dollywood, the first element right after you crest when you go over the drop and you come up and you go into that wave turn, but it breaks in on itself, so it gives you sideways ejector. I have that in mind, so I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to do this. How should we go? This is when, because whenever I get to this point, I will kind of think about, should I go left or right? Only because I don't want the layout to go way out, be twisty, and then come all the way back. I want to kind of keep it in like as you can see, kind of like the darker white or the thicker white line in the square. You can like keep that within that zone. And so for this, I would probably say we're gonna go right with it, and then we can make it come back in on itself and get really twisty in this bottom section, and then bring it back in. So that'll also give us a little wiggle room up here if we want to take the track up here a little bit, or whenever we get the second launch in. So what we will do is, first you want to click this point, so that will, didn't mean to move it. You want to click the point so that way you'll start off in the same height, because if not, then your track will probably be way up or way low or to the side. It just looks really weird. So I will click, and then I will create what I want the overbank to look like from overhead. Don't worry about the heights and everything. Just create it the way you see it overhead. So like a breaking wave turn, we would click, and then we kind of like work the track around like this. And then since it's braking on itself, we can give it that braking point and then have it catch itself. Now that is very extreme, but we're going to go back and adjust it, because this is literally all about adjusting and going around. But I'm also going to use the G-force combs to really make this element pop. And so, well, actually, I'm missing an entire point. I apologize. Let's add the launch, actually, because that is definitely needed. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by giving this strict, and then from one strict node to the last strict node. This is the way I do it. Once again, as I said in the first tutorial, my way is not necessarily the right way. It's just the way I do it, and this is what I'm used to doing, so I'm just going to explain how I go about it. I would click the section, go to section type, and then transport. You can also use break. Like, you can also go to break, double click on break, enable, and create a launch this way. But it's just, it's a little bit easier to just make a transport. You can do LSM, and then for this section of track, we'll say we want it to go 45 miles an hour. Well, actually, we'll do 50. And then we'll do 50 acceleration. We'll do like 0.8. We can check the speed combs. And you can see acceleration. And you can see as I move it out, the combs are still going up. So we would adjust the acceleration until the combs don't move at all when we adjust that. That way we know that when the train has reached the end of the launch, it's actually going the max speed, rather than, like half launch or not getting the full speed out of it. So we go back, we can make it 1G, and then like you see when I move it, these top combs don't adjust or go up and down anymore. That lets us know that when the train reaches the end of this, it will be 50 miles an hour. So that gives us an easier idea of gauging when we make the rest of the layout up until the second launch. So what I will do is select all of this. You don't want to select the node that's beside the strict one, because if you do, then it will take the strict node with it. And so you would not select that one, and then from here you would kind of just use page up and page down to get it where you want it. And this is when the G-force combs come into play. And don't worry about the red, because once we get the general idea of this, then adjusting is our best friend. So we will kind of get this, and then you want the peak of it to be this part right here, where it comes out and back on itself. It's kind of like a triangle. You want the triangle to be the peak of that element. So let's say I want the peak to be up here. You would make it a little bit taller, and then you would want to round it out. So you want to like make it kind of like looks like an airtime hill from the side, but it'll make more sense once I finish shaping this up. But I'm literally just clicking on each vertice and page up, page down, because it doesn't morph or move the track at all. It literally just moves it up and down. So that way it makes it a lot easier with keeping its scale and everything else. So now it looks bad. So we're going to go here, click this, and depump. And I'm not necessarily worried about it morphing very much, because I'm going to go back and adjust it, because I don't want it to keep that shape, because it just looks a little bit off. So we're going to just go around and then just depump sections of it. And then once we depump it, then we know that it's smoothing the track, so then we can go back and add our rolls in. So I'll put one here, and then we'll click here, and this is where we will add in our banking. So this banking could be a little extreme. Yeah, it is. So I'll have to move this out, but I will go ahead and just add the rest of it in. See, like right there, I might have to go 90 degrees there. And then we'll go 90 degrees here, and then 90 degrees here. and then we will click on no lateral G-force for the rest. So literally just like the triangle at the top, how we kind of got that 3-point triangle, you would do that with nodes too. So the top 3 nodes would be basically the same 90 degrees, but that's not always. That's just in this case for what I'm doing. It's how it would be best to do. And you can kind of see right there, the launch track is a little bit wobbly. And you could technically just click on a node or a roll and just make it strict. But it's just habit for me to just, hey, you can never have enough. So I just put it until I know, because if we go to track and then we take off the G-force comes into the launch. So you see how snappy this is. Like, that is not comfortable. So to fix this, we will literally just stretch this part out. So you don't really need G-force comes for this because you're just going to stretch it out. So then we can go back to G-force comes. And yeah, there's no red, so we're already doing better. And we'll pull this back a little bit. Oh gosh. Alright, so after I stretched this part out, I kind of just pulled the G-force comes, or the roll points around. And it's still a little sloppy, so I'm just gonna, in real time, I will adjust all of this. So if you're trying to get, for the smoothness of this, you don't want to click the first one because of the strict node. It will end up bending the track at the base of the launch, and that will make it kind of deform when going into the section for it. So then you would come up here and just start depumping after you kind of adjust your G-force comes and all, and then we can go back and kind of go on the track a little bit. Like it's smoothing up a little bit, and so it looks like it's getting better. All right, there we go. So you kind of see we're getting somewhere. Now, obviously, the negative G's right here that you would feel are insane. And this is thigh ripping. So we're gonna fix this. So I'm not gonna click and drag the nodes. To be more precise, I'm gonna use my arrow keys by hitting up and left. But depending on how you start your coaster in the view is based on how the arrows would work for you. But for me, since I always usually start in the right view, when you go to top, usually it's left is left, right is right, up and down. So it makes it a little bit easier. I usually always start in right view. And we can just adjust slightly until we get pretty consistent but not too abrupt. Negative combs. And then for this one, we want it to be on 0G so the cart can be ejected. And then the 0G point is for the train to catch you and just pull you into the pull-out turn. So right now we have a pretty decent... So like I like the shaping of it, and I want it to keep this same negative G-force throughout. So this is when I would go back and add in my additional vertices in between each one because I wanted to keep its shape. So we're gonna go back and smooth this entire section, and you see the G-force comes immediately become very smooth and consistent. And we will do the same thing for the breaking point of the wave turn, and we will depump that, and we have this. So then we will smooth the in-betweens, and let's try it out. See, I gotta go back and adjust some of these, which is fine. It's not gonna make too much of a difference. All right, and now for the secondary part, I would say there's more than just one. When I do make a braking wave turn, I don't only look at the vertical G-forces. I look at also the lateral ones. So for braking wave turns, you don't want the G-forces to be down because you don't want to be hanging down. So this is when you would go back and select every point until, as you see, like the G-force come up a little bit. So then I want it to stay up throughout. So we will just hit Well, actually, for this, in this case, you see it's going too much, so then I got to take out some of them, which is fine because we can always add them back in. And oh wait, okay, we got that. So then we can go to the next one, and then we can go down, and it'll make sense after you get it. So then we're just gonna continue this, and then you'll see the track go into the ground, but that's an easy fix. So we're not gonna worry about this section at all. We're not gonna look at this at all. It's gonna be invisible to us. So I would come back, and obviously that's janky. Like if you leave it that way, then cool, I guess. All right, track, and then come up, and also you might have to adjust some of the roll points, which it's not a big deal. So it comes up, and now is when you would come back and you can kind of like manually adjust your points to the vertical G-forces. And this is when a lot of adjusting comes into play, because you can kind of see here, if I turn off the G-force cones, the track's not really straight. It's kind of just a little bit like wobbly. It's like up and down a little bit. Like right here, you can tell it pulls itself up and then it pops you out right there. It's kind of like really smooth looking. And then you look over here and the track's just all over the place. So we'll see what happens if I do this, and yeah, it doesn't look that good. Actually, we'll see how it goes with that part, because you can always pop it out right there, and it's also kind of an interesting wave turn, actually. So I mean, actually, I have a different idea. We're gonna kind of see. The thing is when you aren't thinking about this last section, it leaves room for more creativity. So what I'm going to change this to, instead of coming back and then having to go out, I'm going to make it pop you out, and then right here where the track starts to like come back a little bit, like this is not 90 degrees at 65, so it's coming back on itself to like even like flatten out. We're going to make it go into a turn that will take you to the left. So to come out, and then it will spin you to the left. So you find the point that you want it to start at, and then go back to top view. And this is also where the 2D flat thing will also come into play. So I will just drag these around like that. I mean, it doesn't look great right this second. And then we have to go back and see where it's at. See, like that's just, ugh. All right, so we can go to front view, and we can kind of like, you want to kind of straighten these lines out. Like if I go to spline, you kind of want the spline to be straight as much as possible. And then like this is definitely not straight by any means, but it should do for what we're trying to do. So we already have, go back to G-force cones, we can see that it pops out here. So all your airtime's in the beginning of the wave turn. This last part, there's not so much airtime. So what I'll do to make the transition from the braking wave turn into the turn smooth is we will click these three, track, and then 2D top. And we might be able to throw this one in there. Yeah, that should work. We'll see. If not, then I'll take that one out. This should work. See, that's insane. We don't want that. So we'll do 55 there instead of 65. We'll come down here, and just to make everything a little bit easier, we're just gonna pull this around. And then from the point where it starts to turn, we could do, oh, well, not that. We will go here and get that in play. See, it wants to keep doing that. All right, so from the part where it starts to rotate, you're trying to think of the heart line, and a track will rotate pretty straight around a heart line. So you go to spline, and we can click these and then make these straight, and then that way the track will rotate around the heart line that brings you into the turn. That looks pretty solid. So we'll actually, let's just do this first before we actually set everything into play. So you come up, pop into it, and then it'll turn and take you. So what I'll do, usually when I have a turn like this, and then it's going to take you another way, typically I'll click it, and once you hit lateral G-force, I will minus or plus 10 to it. So then it makes it a little bit smoother, but obviously it's very janky because I haven't smoothed anything, but I wanted to keep its shape. So I will go back, and in between each one, add vertexes all the way through. And then we can begin to smooth this section by section, and then all together. So let's do that. You can kind of see it already shaping up a little bit, so we're gonna... Alright, so if we go back to track view, we can go to G-force combs, and then we can see it come up, pop you out, and there you go. So, not perfect, but you come up, you get a little pop of air time, and then while you're in the air, the track will rotate around to pull you into the next one. And then as you see, like, you see the track kind of going up, so you can take this as you want. Like, maybe I want it to go back up, so we're going to kind of make a straight line as much as possible, which makes it easier for adjusting the G-force combs later on when we get to that point. But you just make it as straight as possible. So then we got this part. So now that we have the first launch, we kind of want to figure out how we can add a couple more wacky elements in. So what if we did like a zigzag, like on the two, it's like a trick track, Intamin's trick track basically. It's like on Pantheon and the new coaster coming to Park Asterix, how they have like the little zigzag, what Intamin calls it a zigzag element, but it's a trick track, but it's more kind of extreme. It doesn't just bank left and right, it banks and goes in on itself left and right. So we can do that, and I can explain how to go through the ejector combs on that to make sure everything's kind of as really flowy as possible, and it's not just, 45 degrees one way, 45 degrees the other way, and then into the next one. So what we'll do is we'll take the zigzag element, create that, we'll see where the speed combs are after that, and then maybe we'll go into the second launch, or if we have enough speed, we can add in another element or two, but I'll try to keep everything diagonal, just to kind of make more sense of how to use the straight 2D thing, because you can also use it in right view and front view. You can use it in all, but it will be a little janky sometimes, so if it happens, hopefully it will happen in the middle of making this, but if it doesn't, then I will be happy to answer any questions that you throw my way. So I will go ahead and skip to the next part of this tutorial. Alrighty, so in this next part, I don't know why I'm just not realizing this, but we have this as an RMC track. So if I freeze it, I didn't even notice that at first, but there we go. Then we have the launch to come up, and then, alright, so to test our ride, as I've explained before in my last tutorial, we will go to track, and then we will create a little section at the end of it, and then create that as a break, so it has a block section following the launch. We can freeze that, and then we can save, leave editor, and then test it out to see how it flows. So we can test, not preferences, and then play, and then I hit Q, and then you can adjust the camera with WASD space and X. So you're gonna get a little error when it hits the launch. Oh, never mind, I already hit that then. Alright, so a little pop, and then it flips it over, and then we can even look at it off-ride to see if it looks alright. I mean, if it rides alright, then we know that, but it's always nice to check off-ride, because watching your rides off-ride is oddly, it's pretty satisfying, especially when, like, usually RMC cars are six cars long, but That'll do, donkey. Okay. Back to perspective, and do I want to keep this as an RMC? You know what? Yeah, we'll do this. We'll keep the RMC. So I will go back, unfreeze. I will add the extra train in. We're gonna keep this as an RMC, and go on with the rest of it. But I am gonna keep the zigzag idea I originally had. I'm gonna do like a trick track double down, but I'm gonna do it kind of with the Intamin way of doing it. So if we're coming up here and turning up to this point, and we are at like 77, like positive 77 degrees, then I will make the first bank for that. I don't know how to explain it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say, but all right. So what I'll do is I'll come up here, and then we will make it kind of come in on itself, and then we will come here. And make sure you remove the brake section, because if not, then the rest of the ride will be measured on having the brakes there. And when you take the brakes off, your G-force sections will be screwed all up. So what we will do is, well, first off, we want to keep this at 45 degrees. Well, not keep it at 45, but we'll use 45 as a good point to rotate around. So G-force comes, and then from here we will use the combs to adjust, and then we can mess around going. I'm using my arrow keys going left and right, and then page up and down to go up and down. But as you we'll see, because I gotta add more roll points in, and I also want to make sure I'm explaining everything as simple, not necessarily simple, because it's kind of, there's no simple way of actually explaining this, but as clear as possible, because I know how it feels to watch a tutorial and you think you're going to get the answer out of it, and you're like, wow, this did not help me at all, and you feel like your time's wasted. So I want to try to cover everything, and if there's any questions, then I'm always happy to respond and help if I am able to. So, of course, we got the first little part, and then it comes up. Oh, well, that's, alright, we'll keep it 45. So you see how we have the G-force combs going to the left. Technically, we don't really want that. We kind of want it to even itself out and not have any lateral G-forces. We just want it to be strictly just vertical airtime, but also sideways. So using your arrow keys, you can go around and stretch out some of these. And even if it doesn't look right, whatever you're building, if the force says it's right, it's probably right, even if it looks wrong. So we got some airtime there, but we want to, there we go. So we have, I'm about to go back on my word about what I said. This looks terrible. Okay, so let's actually see though, because we want to keep the airtime, but we don't want to have lateral forces like that. So we will soften up on that. We can bring this track in slightly, see how it looks. Alright, so now we just go back and then adjust again. And we want to keep similar forces vertically, but not like extreme negative forces. So what we will do is just adjust. And then when you're in perspective view, it's a little bit difficult to figure out which way is which when doing these. So like you can kind of see it now, where it's kind of taking shape, where it's kind of banking in on itself after coming up from this turn. So then we still have consistent vertical airtime, there's not, I mean, there's still laterals, but you can adjust those by hitting page up and down. And here there's still that. So that is some, I mean, if it's a quick pop of airtime, then it's not terrible, but okay, enough on this part. I gotta add in the other part, because alright, so we have it coming down. You want to have it go straight for a not even 3 nodes or vertexes, and then you want it to bank the other way, so it's gonna bank in on itself one way, and we're gonna turn, and it's gonna bank back on itself. So it's gonna start to do this. It's like a very wide S, kind of. It's like a very wide S, and pull this and go back to perspective, and this is when we can. Don't put G-force cones in immediately. You just kind of want to shape it yourself because you have the idea. And then you can go back and add or go off the forces and adjust. So you can kind of see it goes in on itself one way, and then at the point where I want it to be level is there, but we can hit no laterals, and that kind of gives us an idea on where we can stretch the track to. So you come up, pop, and then it'll be another one right there, but it's not really a strong enough pop, so we're gonna do that. And now that we kind of have that where we want it, I'm gonna try to, I mean, there's not enough vertices here, so I'm gonna add a couple. I'm not gonna make it super dense. Element, we could depump that, see what it does with the shaping. That seemed to do perfectly fine, but I still want to like depump it a little bit more to shape it around a little bit. We can go to, oh, there we go. And then that should be no laterals. Yeah, look at that. There we go. So we're getting somewhere, but as you see, like, I am moving very fast, and hopefully I'm not causing too much confusion, but it's literally just me showing the process of adjusting, and really trying to get the forces down. And I know that I could easily use FVD++ or something like that, but I don't know, it's just, I'm very fluent with NoLimits, so it's hard to like try another program when I'm already fluent with this one and everything. I have dabbled in it, I will say. I've tried it, and I mean, it's fun to use because it'd make the smoothest elements like possible, but I don't know, something about NoLimits. I just been using it for the past 13 or so years since the first one, so it's like home, you know? So we can take this part and stretch it, because you can see how stretched out this first part is, so you don't want to condense the second part as much. So we can start doing this. You can kind of go off of the lateral forces, and you see they're yellow. So then we have the little, see what I want is to go up a little bit. Like I want it to have a little hill that goes into it, so we have, there we go, and then we can round that off. So then if I bring this back and then hit no laterals, it should be boom, and then we can click that 45 degrees. But there's so much lateral, there's a lot of laterals right there. So this is when I'll go to overhead and adjust the track until there are no laterals. Well, not no laterals, but until there's as little as possible, so that way we can adjust around that. So I mean, it's better, but it's still not great at all. So you might want to take out 10-20 degrees maybe, but it should work itself. I mean, let's try this. We'll go to, because that can also work. Because I mean, we have an airtime element, and we can go that way, or we could just do 0 and add like a lateral airtime pop, which, you know, that's not a bad idea. We could do that. I mean, I already went over this part on that, so I mean, we can add like a little lateral airtime pop, and let's see. So if we're doing that, we want to actually have a burst of airtime. So might not necessarily make it ejector, might make it like a flow ejector type of hill, but like that's gonna be a little rough. All right, so then literally just click kind of about anywhere. That way you can work on this track and it doesn't get deformed. Because if you work too close to the endpoint, it will kind of morph your layout up a little bit. So we have this part. Actually, if I do no laterals, it should be okay. Ooh, all right. Well, okay. Let me take off the G-force combs. Come back here. And then we're going to make it just very, like, ever so slightly start to have a curve. So, yeah, it's got a very wide radius. So, we can come back here, and we know the radius is wide, so we can adjust knowing that that's going to be fine. We can bring the track down, actually bring this down a lot more too. And then we know there's the bottom, so we can like start to creep back up. Now, obviously, it's very, very rough. And I will bring this back. And then when you go over here, you want to go to like towards the bottom, where to bottom out. And just, you could do no lateral forces there. As you see, like, it's going to deform this more. Like, this is 36 and this is 22. Obviously, a pretty big difference in angle. But that's mainly because the endpoint is right there. So I will smooth this out. And I think for the time's sake of the tutorial, because the recording for this section is already at almost 15 minutes. So I will smooth this section out and, like, normal speed. And then I will kind of jump, because I'll add like a helix or something, and then we will go into a second launch. And then I'll go over top hats and curved drops, because I've also gotten questions about curved drops, like Expedition G-Force, Conda, coasters like that. So I'll go over that as well. So let me go ahead and smooth this up really quick. Actually, let me see what the forces look like. All right, that's fine. So we know the G-forces are fine, so we can just add some vertices, click and drag element to pump. And we will do this section, and then that section, and then all section. And then we can try it out. Let's come up there. Oh. So, is this already 45? Yeah, that's 45, and this is 45 too. I didn't even notice that. So for this, I'm going to come up, we hit the first 45, and then I'll take 10 degrees off of that one. And there we go. I could probably pull this back a little bit more. So we got airtime and then a lateral pop. Alright, so we've got a pretty decent little launch coaster going. What I will do, because it's a lot easier to explain as a modern Intamin design, I'm going to create the top hat, and I'm going to change the design. Like, I go to coaster properties, we'll go to style, and then I'll go to rocket coaster. And we'll do striped, new, boom, and double click, modern single spine. So we'll keep this for right now. And that way I can explain the top hat, because the top hat is a lot easier to explain with the modern Intamin spine. Because, I mean, the shaping of the new Intamin top hats, oh, they're pretty great. And to get them right, it is kind of a challenge. A lot of my top hats I spend quite a bit on them to get the shaping of them as, like, perfect as I can. So, I mean, now that I got this done, I'm going to add a helix or something, and then we'll go into the second launch, and then the last little half of the layout, we'll make it super twisty, throw in a couple inversions, and hopefully cover all the other questions that you might have. I'll also make the second section go like, left, right, obviously, but also diagonally, so I can go over how to like get your diagonals, like your diagonal designs right, instead of having to click the whole coaster and then go here and then rotate the section to be straight. Like if you're trying to do this and you're like, oh, I want to get this straight so I can put this on the line, and then I know that I'm building straight. Like, you don't have to do all that. So I'll go over how to do that, because that's something I wish I would have knew a long time ago, but we'll skip to that part. And if you're still watching the tutorial and you have any questions, please leave a comment down below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And until then, I will see you when I finish this art. So, I might have changed my mind a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in an airtime hill, but I'm going to build it going up diagonally, because it's a very simple build. It's literally a hill, and it might make it a little bit easier to understand. So what I will do is we will choose where we want it to be, because I want it to turn into it. But like if we go to G-force combs, like I'm not gonna want it to be that wide of a turn, because that's not really pulling a lot of G's. It's kind of just, it'd be a dead spot basically, because you kind of just wait. So I want to add a little bit of intensity to this turn. So we're gonna just bring it together, and since it's like a very short turn, having high G forces for this small period of time should not be an issue. Shouldn't, but we'll see. So once you have the direction that you want the hill to go in, we will go to front view, and I know this is gonna look weird, so don't worry too much about it. We can bring this up, and then it's gonna look very awkward and strange, but we will fix it in a minute. So we're gonna pretty much get the airtime we want with the G-force combs, and we're gonna even that out. We're gonna come back and start adjusting, because we want it to be consistent. So we have this, bring this up a little bit, and boom. So that's a pretty sharp hill. That'll be good. So now what we'll do is we'll select the entire thing. Let me turn off G-force combs. We're gonna rotate it to where we want it to be. So about there, but it does not have to be perfect, because what I'm gonna do is we're gonna select the last two nodes. Why do I keep calling them nodes? I mean vertexes. And then we're gonna hit 2D top. So now the turn into the airtime hill is completely straight. And we can go to perspective and see what it looks like. We can, like, let me open up the roll thing, and we can click right here, and then you can kind of see, yeah, there's no lats right here, so it kind of just straightens itself out to be, so it's kind of like it's meant to be there. So if we go through on the track, oh, this is going to take a little bit of adjusting. So I mean, we got this, a lateral airtime hill, yeah, like that. We're definitely gonna adjust this a little bit, and then we're gonna select this whole turn and depump, because it will blend it. But then we got this, so we will go to 20. Oh my, all right. And then here, and then we will go 5, and that should smooth it out. Jeez, that is a strong airtime hill. Well, it's not even really strong, it's just, that's sharp. But, yeah, because I want to keep this shape. That's a pretty good shape for an ejector hill. It kind of sneaks up on you. So we're going to add, well, we don't need one there, but we're going to add our vertices in. Oops. And go over so that way it doesn't, like, mess anything else up. And depump it a couple times. You'll see it start to take shape, and then you can adjust these that go into the hill. So then if we come back, yeah, that's a sneaky little airtime hill. All right. And then we can definitely no lat. And then no lat, and then you go off of 10, because we know that's the first vertex on the turn, so to smooth itself into it. There we go. All right. It does look a little jerky, but when you're actually on it, it will roll a lot smoother. And then the fact that, hang on, what's the tallest point on this? 45 feet. And then the tallest point on this, 51. So the airtime hill is taller than the initial element after the launch. That's interesting. All right, so what I'm going to do is, from this point, I'm going to, this time now, I'm going to create a helix. Not even a helix. I'll just create a super high speed, high G turn. And then we're going to keep going diagonal. Meaning, like, I'm going to, here, I'll just draw it in. So we're going to come down, and we're going to do a high speed turn right here. Which will, that'd be insane. And then we're going to keep going diagonal this way. And then this right here, this section, will be our second launch. I want the Tophat to be between 170 and 200 feet. So we're looking anywhere between 65 to 73 miles an hour. And so what I will have to do is just adjust the way I want this turn to be taken. And that's going to be an intense turn. But, yeah, I'm going to adjust it. Literally just by, I mean, obviously adding the roll points. And then I'm going to page up and page down to get the smoothness into it. Because on a turn like this, you kind of want it to begin to go up a little bit. I mean, it doesn't do a lot, but it will somewhat alleviate some G-forces if you're going up instead of down. Because if you're going down, you're going to generate more force, which is more stress. So we're going to go upwards a little bit with it to kind of alleviate the G-forces. Then we will straighten out and begin our second launch, which will take us up into a Tophat. For this, I'm going to do a traditional Tophat. We're going to go up, and then I'm going to make the Tophat turn. And we're going to go over it. We're going to crest over it, hit 95 or so degrees, and then we'll finish the rest of the twisty ride. So, if you're still watching, I really do appreciate it. The view is always helpful. I'm glad to know that I'm helping out in any way possible. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next part after I adjust this, and I will see you then. So I just kind of threw together a quick little turn into it. As you see, it's high speed. Nothing, there's no red combs or anything. So, I mean, it's good. So, I mean, as you see, like, it starts off pretty strong. But as the turn goes on, I widened it. Let me go over. So you see, it starts out like hugging, and then it widens up a little bit to alleviate the G-forces, so it can reduce the effect of graying out or potentially blacking out. So that's good. It's not excessive. And so what I have, it's a little wobbly. Like, I have to adjust this, but we'll do that in a little bit. I'm not trying to get everything 100% amazing on this part because we're just trying to find something to go into the second launch. So, we'll go here. Actually, what if here's what I'll do. I want to see how this actually turns out. And it actually might work. 45. 45. Click. No lats on all of these to see if any adjust. So then that might actually. Oh, so let me go ahead and smooth that then. I do apologize if I go on any silent tangents. Not really silent, but more like just designing and speaking out loud. I feel like it just makes picking up how I'd go about doing things a little bit better, maybe. But as you see, we got this. It kind of like comes up and then it'll swoop down into the second launch, and you can see how crooked this is. So, as I explained before, we will click this node and then the rest of them. Track, 2D top, and then that should be straightened out. Oh, you can see where it kind of wobbles a little bit, so we'll have to do this. There we go. Also, I did mention this in my other tutorial, but I'll mention it again just so it's out there. When you're doing a turn, well, at least for me, to make everything smooth, notice how the combs aren't centered. They're more off to the side a little bit, like left side, so it's a little bit lateral. Make sure each comb is consistent with that. So if you have it going to the left, make sure they're going to the left slightly. If they're going to the right, make sure it's going to the right slightly. It just makes it, consistent forces make it smoother. It's like if I had this at 0, it would, you'll see the wobble. Like it's just, like you can kind of see it. Like kind of like goes back and forth. But if you have the consistent forces on the same side, this is a perfect example right here. This turn up into it, as you see, it's on the left or the right, left, and then it goes back to the right, then left. That creates the wobble. So if I turn off this, you can see it. You can definitely see the wobble. But that's just an example. So right now what we'll do is we will take this. We're going to make this strict because we're making a launch section, so we want it to be straight. We'll slide this down. Actually, we're going to slide it back because I need to add in some vertices. And then I will make these strict as well. Strict. And we're wanting it to get up to about 70 miles an hour. So we're about 150, 160 feet. So we will stretch this out this way. Look at the length of the train and kind of eyeball it to the length of it, because you don't want it to be such a strong acceleration it doesn't feel like it could be an actual ride. So, I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you want to make unrealistic rides that are just smooth. So it's all on your preference. So I'll click this. We're going to make all this strict. Go back to perspective. Make sure everything's good. I will raise this, though, because that is a little low to the ground. There's not really much room to add the supports. So now we know that those are strict, so we can just kind of arrow up with those. Not arrow up, my bad. Page up. I paged up to move that up. And, oh my. Well, I didn't know I was going to do that. So hopefully, oh, so okay, it's really wobbly there. So I will 2D straighten it again, because that just shows that it's not straight. So we will select these, and then go to top, turn off G-force combs, and then straight. And then we will click these and depump them, hopefully making it a smoother. Let's take that one out. So then, there we go. So that right there shows the effectiveness of using the 2D straight. That goes right into it pretty smoothly. Alright, so we know that it's coming in with some speed, so it's going under with quite some speed. Also, side note, make sure you're saving as frequent as possible. You never know when something might happen. Power goes out, your computer decides to randomly restart, or something to that matter. Your dog steps on the cord or the surge protector, turns it off. I make it very much a habit to save, and if I go to save now, you'll see it's I haven't modified anything. I save constantly. There's probably been many points in this tutorial where I saved and I didn't even notice I was saving. It's just so much of a habit. So I highly recommend getting into that habit. I also shared that on my last tutorial, but I can't stress that enough. Saving as much as possible. You can never save enough. Transport. We're going to do the same thing we did with the first launch, except we're going to have modern track on this one. So we're going to adjust this. Excuse me while I do this. We're going to single spline. Boom. All right. So we want this to go up to, we'll say, we'll do 70 miles an hour. That's a pretty solid one. We'll do 70 at 0.8. And speed. So now I'm not too sure. I'm gonna have to pull this out a lot more than I thought. Alright. So we pulled it out, so I'm oops, I did not mean to do that. So you can see the G-force comes going up and down towards the end. I'm trying to find the spot where it is at full speed, so that's about right there. I'm going to add some vertices. It's going to adjust it a little bit, so I'm going to have to redo it, but that's not a problem. Come back and you can see it's like perfect at this one. So I will make that one strict and this one strict. And then from that, I will bring this back, which allows me to have more flexibility when creating the uplift into the top hat. But I'm adjusting manually, so we're gonna have to go do this whole thing again. So we're gonna have to select all these, make them straight, and then we have to depump this little area, and then check it again, make sure it's good. It looked good backwards, so we'll go forward. All right, still good. So I mean, we have straight sections, and now we can first off create a single modern spline, and we will start to press page up because now we actually have forces. And with this, we will do the same thing we did with the airtime hill. You're gonna click it, and then you're just gonna kind of go up with it. And you can always turn and adjust it. Like right here, you can turn off this and then rotate till you think it's right. Boom. And then you can select that 2D and then put some roll point so it keeps it straight. And then you can G-force combs and go back to perspective and see what the combs look like. Obviously there's too high of G-force right there, so we will adjust that. As you see, it's really janky. So like we'll do this, and then we can pull this up. See, I've never had an issue like this where it's just all weird looking. I'm pretty sure it has to do with, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we have to straighten this again. And technically, you only have to make 2D straight top with a strict node, because the strict node is also the same as the rest of the launch part. So I mean, we can go back to perspective. You can still see it's like that, but if we smooth it, it should definitely clear that up a little bit. I mean, it's still pretty strong. So come up. I'm gonna fix this, but for the time being, we got this. We got the section where it's gonna launch you to 70 miles an hour, and we made sure that it's gonna be 70. We take this. We can page down to reduce the red. Page down on this to reduce the red, and same with this. And go back to front view, and then we can finish off the top hat. Like come up, and then the forces are gonna be the same regardless. So the way I think of it is, think about the shape of an egg. I know that sounds funny and ridiculous. The shape of an egg, like it starts off really wide, and then when it gets close, it starts to, like if you look at Top Thrill Dragster's top hat, you can see that it starts to come in, it's like a wide angle, and it comes in very slightly, and then at the top, it just crests. Same thing with Pantheon, Velocicoaster. They have very specific top hats. So usually, like something similar to kind of this is very rough, but something kind of similar to this. Also, as a side note, if you have negative G forces at the top of your top hat, chances are it's going to fly over at a ridiculous speed. So, out of anything on the ride that you want to have like what it seems to be no force, the top hat is kind of what you're shooting for that. Believe it or not. And you'll see it'll shape itself out. Like, you'll see what I mean, but it's I had to grasp that because building all these top hats that I've been building lately. Oh, that's just all right. I'm a terrible designer. Let's fix that. So you can have airtime going up to the crest, but when you get up there, you want it to be kind of like what I have now. Just the lines are under it. The G-force comes are under. And you'll see when I go to test it out. I mean, this is a really wide top hat, so yeah, that's really wide. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to actually, did that unintentionally work? Like, I wasn't trying to actually go that way. I was gonna straighten it out, but I mean, if it works that way, let's smooth it and see what happens. I mean, it's a little red. What if I do more? Will it kind of alleviate? Still a little red. Okay. Oh, so it turns a little bit. Oh. So if we go, I'll delete this one because we're already facing up. You go to the point where you're already facing up and then you can correct, but I usually won't correct. That's actually not bad. So now I can kind of just take all of that and depump it, and it should smooth out together. I'm just gonna turn a little bit and then over the top. Alright, so let's test this out and actually see what we have going. We're gonna freeze that. I mean, it doesn't look like a normal top hat, so I will probably adjust this quite a bit. I'll do all that pretty much real time. Close this. I should have changed that. I didn't think about changing it. I'll change that later in the tutorial. That track's literally sitting on the ground. We gotta pop out, and then it'll flip us over, and then into it. There we go, and then up to a sharp airtime hill. That's about as sharp as Mavericks at Cedar Point. That's pretty. Let's shoot some the top hat. Yeah, you can see how janky that is. So, go back to front view. And so we know that it's gonna do that. So to make it, and you see it's like kind of gonna make it. So what I'll do is I'll sharpen it up more, and then we'll bring this in, and then I want it to be so we have quite a bit to go. But you want to like start your drop a little bit wide, and you can bring it in. So what I'll do is I'll come here, and then we'll come back out. And that's just an ugly top hat. So this is how usually all my top hats usually start out. It's just like I always say, it's just a matter of adjusting and just trying to get everything right. So I'm going to adjust this until I can get the forces right. So 95 is about there. But the top hat looks terrible. But you can, sometimes it will correct itself if you add a couple vertices. Not like super dense, but if you add a couple and then you smooth it, it will correct itself. Let's just hope. That's better. I mean, that is a lot better actually, but typically they have more of a point to them. So like you go here and then it's usually something like that, but we can smooth it from that point and see what it looks like. But you see how how quick that happened. Like it's adjust. So I got to track, and I know it's gonna start us at the beginning. Let me go ahead and fix this now since I'm already here. All right, so we have the modern spline, and then we'll come up, airtime, twist, more airtime, lateral airtime, vertical airtime, an intense turn, and then we'll go up. So you gotta turn off the G-force combs in order to actually. Well. There we go, that rounds it out quite a bit. Because if we're looking at, we can go to spline, and you can kind of see the slight crest that we're going for. And now that we have the shaping that we want, because we can always go back and adjust the speed slightly. So now we have the drop the way we want, we can depump that, and it should shape itself out to be 95 degrees. That's about 95. That's probably honestly 97. If you're just looking at it, that's about 97. We'll just smooth that out again, just to be safe, and we can smooth out the rising into it. And now we can go back here. Oh, so I seen a little bit of wiggle, so we're gonna change that to 5 degrees, and then it. There we go. So if I take this roll out, that might actually help it a little bit more too. So if I go backwards, it should just turn and catch itself. Yep. So adjusting. So we have the top hat, and I did not smooth that part. But what I will do is, let's see how tall this is. I'm gonna assume 170. Yep, there we go. Like, there we go. See, that's satisfying. So if we go back to G-force combs. Oh no. Alright, so we're just gonna ignore that right now. I'll try to smooth it out, but it's probably not gonna go anywhere. Alright, I think it'll be okay. So let's widen this, and in typical fashion, I did a 0G stall in the last tutorial, which is a very common element now. So now we're going to do a Intamin style outer bank turn, which is typically about 70 or 80 degrees. I know RMC typically does theirs at 45, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, but around that region of 45. Intamin likes to go to the extreme with it, and they will tilt their track about 70 to 80 degrees. And very different sensation, but it's still a fun element nevertheless. So now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and end this portion here because we're sitting at 21 minutes, which is insane. Didn't mean to ramble on that long, just trying to make sure I can cover everything, but I will see you in the next portion. Alright, so this is what we have so far, and it's turning out actually really well. Our total track length right now is 1,835 feet, 174 feet tall, and then a minimum height of 6 feet. So, with that, which I'm pretty sure is, yeah, it would be this part. Technically, if you want to be, if you know that this is the bottom part, then you can go here, take your height minus, or max height, and then minus the minimum height, and then that's your drop height. But you don't have to get that technical with it. That's only if you know that the bottom of the drop is the lowest part of the ride. For degrees though, like honestly, I can kind of eyeball a little bit. So this is roughly 95, between 95 and 97. So like, it's not like an absolute, but it's pretty close. But anyway, getting into what this whole next part's about, we're gonna do an outer bank turn, and then the rest of the ride is gonna be completely inversion based. So we're gonna have, so far, yeah, every single element so far has been airtime, which is personally my favorite part of any roller coaster's airtime. And we have pretty much started. We have a good start to the ride, so we want to keep the momentum. So we have all these airtime moments that builds up the thrill, and then we can go to the second launch, which takes you up the Tophat, and then we have a beyond vertical drop, which is automatically like a selling point for some people. And so we want to add one more airtime moment, and we're going to create an outer bank turn, and then for the rest of then after the outer bank turn, I think depending on where we end up with the outer bank, I might do some sort of death roll, or something along those lines, and then we can start from there, because that's probably where we'll end up anyway. So let's go to G-force combs and start building upwards. And you kind of want to stay about 45 degrees with the lift up. And I mean, you can honestly just smooth all this out, like depump it, and then to shape itself out. Then you can come back through here and add your roll points. Try this, and then you can see how smooth that so it goes. And now it's climbing up. Actually, if we go here, no, wrong one. Front view. You can see it's starting to go more towards 1G. So the way that I do it is I will make a slight crest, like nothing super insane. Like, well, it's basically like building a normal airtime hill. Like this, and then we're gonna go back and adjust how much airtime. So I want it to be a pretty thrilling moment, so we will add that. All right, so we have this. Then, typically what I'll do, well, let me get this right, and then I will continue. All right, so once we have this, you want to find where it starts to crest, which would be right at this point. So you want to take this to the end of the point, come up, and then depending on which way you want to take the outer bank, which since we're all the way over here, which I didn't actually expect us to get that far off, we're going to take it to the right. So what we'll do is we'll arrow down a couple times, and then we will arrow down the next one. And then the whole point is to make sure the very top of the outer bank is the middle turn part. So we know that, okay, so for example, this wouldn't be it. So we would have to bring this point down, which is the top of the outer bank. Then we can arrow down, and then from this point we can rotate the track to how we want it to end. So I'm trying not to keep anything Well, I'm trying not to keep anything on the grid, meaning like X and Y. Like you don't want to. I'm trying to make sure everything's built kind of diagonally to maybe help. So what we'll do is this, and then you want it to just eventually line up like that. So now we have like a wide turn, and we could still go here, and you can see it, and we still have quite the laterals. So then I will come back, and I want to keep this shape here, so we're not going to mess with that. So we're just going to add some vertexes, and then we're going to depump those. And that should smooth this part out, and then we're going to do the entire drop. And then now we have this, but a typical Intamin outer bank doesn't just round off like this. It has somewhat of a point to it, if you like notice. And so we're going to come up and we're just going to add a little point like that. So now it still has airtime, but the track will be sideways, so it won't, the train won't be traveling as high. So it should cruise right through it. And we can check the speed combs, and it still has speed, so it's going to go right through it. And then if we go to front, we could check that compared to the Tophat height, and it's definitely going to go through that with some speed. So what we'll do is we will select pretty much the crest, the entire part, and then smooth that out. We'll smooth that one more time. And then we will take this part going like from the point up. You want it to be completely straight, so that way you can like heartline into it and make it smooth. So this is when I would use a front 2D. So now we'll do this, go to 2D front, and that will straighten it out. I mean, it's already straight. I didn't even notice that. So we'll do that. We'll make it straighter. And then if we go to top view, you can see that it's pretty much straight track. And then if we go here, because we want to do it on both sides to make it consistent, you want to do this, and then we can make 2D straight, but we could probably get away with doing that. No, actually we're not. Just going to add some now, because we pretty much have the shaping that we want. And then we can select the entire thing, and then depump that. And once that smooths itself out, we will be able to go in. And then at the apex, the very top, that's where you want the most. So I'll go 90, and then I go back to 70. And then it's kind of like the arrow method with the, what I was showing over here with the first braking wave turn. It's kind of like that. So you want one on one side, and you can make that like 65, and then you can do the same over here. And it is still like, it'll still flow right into that. So we'll go there, and then we can kind of creep up, and then right here we can add the, we'll do like -20, and then with this I'll do like -5 or +5, sorry. And then over here you can get this pretty straight. And we will file, save. And you can kind of see the shaping and how that turned out. If we go to G-force combs, like look, there like no laterals at all, like right into it and straight out of your seat. I mean, there's a little bit of laterals, but that's pretty smooth sailing. So we can do that again and depump. And that's pretty much done. This does go through it a little bit too fast, but it's probably okay. Let's take out the G-force combs, and then we can go that. We can do 10. It's probably clear to notice that whatever I do, I always have a node between 0 and the max angle. So like we have 70 degrees, and then I will use another one to go down to 65, and then between 65 and what is 65, and then we have 65 and then 20. So between 20 and 0, I have a 5-degree one, which doesn't seem like it does a lot, but realistically it adds the smooth like pop into it. And then right here, the point between 65 and 0, I have 10. So it's very small degrees, but it makes everything flow almost seamless. So we have this, and then we come down, and then now we're already out of the outer bank. So we can go back here. We can check the G-force columns. That's some pretty strong but very solid airtime. That is going to be a strong moment. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it turn to the right, and we're going to try to add a few inversions. I'm going to come up with a couple ideas that I could probably go with and just go from there. Hopefully I'm not confusing you at all, and maybe it's making sense. If not, just don't hesitate to go into the comments, ask me a question. I will always get back and make sure I can respond. I'm here to help. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. So now let's run this through a test, and then we will move to the next part. So we'll brake, and then coaster freeze. Now the thing is sometimes your coaster will probably be weird and maybe barely make it over the top hat or go way too fast. Sometimes it's perfect. But that's why you can always adjust the speeds and the acceleration rate. So let's see how we've done so far. And that is a prime example. Uh-oh. Well, this is what a failed experiment looks like. Alright. So let's adjust this. We will go... We'll do 71.2. And then we will do 1G. You can tell it does something when I mean, this is terrible. I do not recommend having red, but I've kind of went over like balancing forces a lot, so this is where I'm gonna say, you know, screw it. I'm gonna have this to just have it there. So now that we have that boosted up a little bit, we can try this again, but this time we can hit F2 and then hit the plus button. I mean, there's another way to do it, but this is just the way I've always done it. And then once we get close to the second, we will go back to 1 and then close. There we go. So that is a little fast, but I can either... So there's two things I can do here. I can either lower the top hat, raise the outer bank, or slow down the launch by a little bit. Or there's another option, which is kind of like Velocicoaster, adding a trim brake right over the crest of the top hat. But there's multiple ways to adjust the speeds and and the pacing and such. Jeez, that is a thigh-ripping airtime moment. Whew. All right, let me see how fast it actually goes over standing off-ride. Oh, see, that's fine. That's really fast, though. Oh Lord. So I'm not necessarily gonna adjust a lot. I'm gonna adjust the outer bank, but not a lot. So we'll turn these off, and since this is why I have straight sections, because you can never, like, you can always use those as raising and lowering points. So I know that this section is all straight, so we can go up some and then go here, go up some, and then we can go here, up, and then we can go back to G-force combs and actually check. Like, that's a lot more gradual, so that's more realistic, which I love going. I like realism, and that's what I shoot for. I mean, maybe one day I'll make some absurd coaster that's just ridiculous that'll never be built. And then I will pull this back very slightly, like barely any. So now we will freeze it again and try one more time. Alright, so now we have the view, and we want to hurry up and get to the second launch, so we're just going to fast forward through that. And then pulling it back a little bit will make it slow down more, and then we lowered the outer bank some, so it should just... Oh, that's a lot better. I mean, it's very slightly slower. Like, it's barely slower, but it's enough. I could probably still raise it a little bit more, but we don't want to kill all of the speed from this one element. We want it to still have the thrill of getting launched out of your seat. So we're gonna leave that alone. As much as it bugs me to want to fix it, it's just a simple raising thing, so we will just leave that. I will now take this part of the track, and we're gonna make it kind of do a semi U-turn, and it's gonna come back this way. It's gonna rise up, and then we're gonna keep diagonal, and we're gonna do a death roll down this way. That's on iron, like same thing as on Iron Gwazi. And there's a certain way that I did it on one of my last coasters that made it very smooth, and I will go over that when we're doing this, but I did not mean to depump that. I hit the wrong button. Let me Control-Z that. We'll make that top, and then boom. Alright, so we'll get rid of the brake, and you can start to raise this up. Okay, first let's turn off G-force combs, and we can start to raise this, because you're probably gonna want to make this about the same height as the outer bank. So we're gonna just have a very sharp incline. We're gonna switch to this view so we can kind of see what we're doing. And it will crest about there. And then we will start to go down. And then this is where we're going to come in and use G-force combs, and we want every vertex prior to the one we're moving to be at 0 Gs. And then we will go back after we add the rolls in for the death roll, and we will adjust the we're gonna slightly move the vertexes in order to create that full like death roll feel. So let's go to perspective and see what this looks like. So that, I mean, that's not bad, but I mean, we still gotta come out of that. So we're gonna come up. If we're coming this way, we're gonna turn, and then we're gonna flip the opposite direction. So we want the track to roll this way so we can keep rolling after we roll out of the barrel roll. So we have this, and I will lower this to... And then after this, you're going to see a lot of adjusting. If this part is boring, I really apologize, but I know that there might be some of you out there who are really curious on stuff like this, so I figured why not. Let's go back to G-force combs really quickly and add these in so we can see what the forces look like leading up to this point. Let's see, is there any red? Because what we're trying to avoid is any red. So, click, boom, boom, and it's going to go up. And then we'll keep this as 1, or at 0. And then we will start to flip there. And then you kind of just, with doing death rolls or stuff like that, you kind of eyeball it to an extent. Like this is just, I just threw this together. So it's definitely not perfect. But we're going to see, oh, I forgot we got to go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, anyway, this gives me time. Death rolls are fun to make, but to get them very specific, I mean, it's a challenge, but once you get it to that point, it's actually very satisfying. And like I find myself, when I created there was one coaster I made that I did a death roll on, and it was like really well done, and I would watch it over and over because I would think about how I got to that, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if that makes any sense at all, but so stuff like this, honestly, when it comes to stuff like this and I don't feel like messing with it, I just like depump it because there's like such a gap in between. It should correct itself like that. The only downside is it kind of mess with everything prior to that a little bit. So if we come out, luckily it didn't do that. So now we have this, and then we come down, and and it's gonna pull us up. No lats, no lats, and then no lats. So it's gonna come up. I wonder what no lats would be on this. Oh, that's intense. Holy. All right. Probably pull this back a little bit because I want it to snap into it. There we go. So from this point, there's like no lats. Then we get to this point, and that's where it's an issue. So then we were gonna take this, and we're just gonna start sliding everything over until we can reduce that. So okay, so the death roll, actually we kind of got it decently. Oh, it looks so wacky. Oh, it looks nice. All right, so we have some laterals. Oh, but there's a lot of spacing. So let's take that, and we're gonna insert between each one as we've been doing, and then we can turn on the G-force comes again and adjust. So we got that. We can go there, which go up, and actually, oh wait, that, all right, so 0, all right, and I think that's, yeah, that's pretty nice. All right, so now that we have this and it's got about the right forces that we're going for, we can pretty much fill in all of this, and then it won't morph it, or warp it I should say, and depump should smooth it all out. Oh yeah, that's all right. And then we can come down and finish the rest of the death roll and depump that too. So if we go to track view, and you can see kind of how it like freezes right there. We can go to 60. Let's see how that looks. Oh, here we okay. Look, see how we got the combs on one side and then it switches this side. So I want consistency, so we're gonna switch it to that. That should fix this there, and one should fix this there. So now it shouldn't be. Oh. Alright, so that turned out really nice. Okay. Now you see these massive gaps here. We're gonna, as we've been doing, just fill them in. And then depump all of those. Alright. And as you see, you got somewhat of some lateral G's in the towards the end of it, but we can like put a node here, and that should. I mean, we might have to turn it by 10 degrees, but we'll see. Come up, and you can kind of see it. It's very, very faint. Actually, let me get all the nodes to Why do I keep saying nodes? I am not sure why I keep saying that. Alright, we come up. There we go. You can see the smoothness and there's not really much wobble. It goes to the top, and then it yanks you down. I mean, you get a little bit of airtime here. It's like flow ejector, but you still get air, and you'll come up, and then it'll pull, and then you'll be floating the entire way down until you reach the bottom, and then it'll pull you out of that. So we got that, which worked out. And if we look, that's all completely diagonal. So if I come up here and we click on all of this, we can do that, make it 2D straight, come up, and then the heart line is completely straight. It doesn't look like a lot, but performance-wise, when you're going through it and all, it'll feel a little bit different. I mean, it's such a minute thing that it doesn't really matter, but to me, every little detail is important. Even if it's by a couple degrees, it's one of those things. Like I just shoot for as much realism as I can based off of forces. I mean, you could see that it looks like it whips you around right here in this area. It looks like it whips you, but realistically, I mean, it's pretty consistent throughout. It just looks like that. Now I can take this and then turn it 10 degrees this way to kind of make it go through slower, which worked out. So I'm going to keep it that way. Oh yeah. Let's see. So we have an outer bank, we have a Deathroll. Well, first off, let's ignore the first half. So we have a Tophat, an outer bank, a Deathroll. And from the Deathroll, we have a little bit of space to keep going and then turn into the station. So what I'm planning on doing, let's see if I can come up with something. So what I'm going to do is, okay, let's think Fury 325 at Carowinds. You have the first drop, and then you have the first initial, like, I guess you could say turnaround to an extent. And then once it dives down to the ground, you know how, like, it will pretty much do a low dive over the entrance. Well, that's kind of my idea for this part. It's already pretty low, and it's already going in one direction, so I'm going to make it continue. It's going to snap and change directions and then go around. And now that I think about it, we could do a treble clef. We can make it come around this way. And then since it's going at a decently high speed, that should be fine. And then straighten that out. And then the coaster's on this line. So if we just follow it, we can bring it into a treble clef that continues around. And once the treble clef is over, we can go into like a Steel Vengeance / Conda finale. That sounds like an enthusiast stream. So that's what we're going to do. So my thought process on this is we're going to lower this down a little bit. We're going to lower that, and then we're going to start bringing this up. So it's going to be quick. So the transitions are going to come at you quick. So we're gonna do this. Literally, I did all of that just by pressing page down and page up. And let's go ahead and bring that over here, and then we can begin our... This is technically more than a treble clef. It's going to have more rotation than your typical treble clef, but same purpose. It's going to bring you up, and it's going to hang you sideways, like 0 Gs, and then catch you at the bottom, and then we can go into a full-on finale. But I feel like since we already did the first half as airtime filled, I shouldn't make it as airtime filled, so I should end it with a outlaw run style. You know, like a double barrel roll, but I feel like that wouldn't be as exciting. I feel like quick pops of airtime is more thrilling to end a ride more than a double barrel roll. That's just my personal opinion. So I feel like I will do a bunch of sideways airtime, I should say. We'll do like a bunch of trick tracks, a bunch of little 0 G bunny hops and stuff like that. But for the time being, let's just worry about this part, which is the build up into the treble clef, which will lead us into the break run. So we will bring this up, and we will start to level it out about here, because we still have to bring it back up into it to dive down. So we will start to bring that up here. And I know it's easier said than done, but if you can imagine what you're trying to do, then it will be much easier to kind of get your ideas out, I should say. But honestly, I can explain a method I use to design certain elements. I'll show a video right here in the corner. If you look up in the corner, you'll see me. Hey, there's me. And this is kind of how I go about it. As you see, I have one side dark, and I pretty much see that as the top of the track. And then you just you can twist the paper and push it closer, farther. You can bend it as much as you want, and then the paper will automatically take shape. And then you can pretty much create an element based off of that, which is really cool. Because if you bend it the right way and push it or pull it the right way, it will basically generate its own heart line, so it makes it a little bit easier to understand what you're trying to do. So right now, I'm going about and smoothing all of this. And I'm only smoothing it. I'm only smoothing it because I know pretty much how I'm going to go about doing this. I pretty much understand how much speed I'm going to be going through this with, so I can kind of guesstimate. And instead of like putting brakes at the end and testing it and making sure it makes it and all, or goes through fast enough, just use your speed combs and G-force combs, and just trust them. Even if it seems like too much, as long as the G-force combs say one thing, then you're pretty much okay. But like I understand the tediousness of having to go back and just putting things together and then having to test them to make sure that it goes the pace that you want. So I can understand I used to do that all the time before I like really picked up on better ways and easier ways of designing. The thing is, I never used to use brakes. Like, I never put brakes at the end. I would go all the way up a lift hill, and then it would slow down and stop at the top, and I would hit F4, go over, and change the thing to manual, and then I would just enable the chain myself, and then that would pick it up, and it would continue to go up the lift and do its thing. So, I mean, trust me when I say I've done a lot of tedious stuff because there wasn't enough tutorials out there to explain simple things. So I mean, I completely understand. So that's why I'm trying to now like explain and hopefully make it better to understand and easier and less tedious to design coasters, because it's a very fun thing to do. It's just sometimes you can get really stumped over the smallest things, and that's what I used to do. But I was stubborn. I didn't stop. All right, so what we're doing here is just tweaking a little bit because it just doesn't feel right this second. Like if I go back 10 and then we can, but I feel like there's too much laterals here. Technically not. I mean, right there is kind of, but oh yeah, that's definitely too much. I want it to feel like one continuous roll. So we're gonna, yeah, I definitely need that other roll in there. Because that helped. It felt like the continuous rolls. And then I gotta go here, lateral, and then -10. And then that should, See, what if I got -10 on that? Would that make it easy? There we go. Okay, we're getting somewhere. What if I do -10 there? Alright, so like I did before, during a heartline turn, we're just going to straighten. So 2D top straight, and then we can just depump it from there. As long as you're taking a high-speed transition over a heartline, and it's not a wobbly heartline, it should flow very, very smooth. So with that, let's see if that changed anything. It might not have, but we'll see. It changed a little bit. I mean, it's not like a tremendous amount, but it was enough. So if we can pop this up, that should be fine. Oh yeah, but we gotta, let's see. There we go. Okay, so, and then if we go to top view, you can see the G-force come. So you can obviously tell it's gonna go through there pretty quick, but it's not gonna be like unbearable forces. So if we can just smooth all of this now, it'll blend in off the nodes, and we should be able to, see, this is going to be nice. It's going to be like really whippy. So I'm going to do solid numbers, like solid meaning like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So obviously the thing is at 73, so we're going to go to 70. This is at 91, so we'll do 90. This is at 91, we'll do 90. And then it should, there, okay, look, that turned out really well. All right, so we have like a low to the ground turn. That's off of a death roll. And we'll come down. It's a continuous turn, and then it'll turn you into that. And then it will start the climb up into the what we're about to create, treble clef. Alrighty. So let's keep going. So obviously this is a pretty wide treble clef. Not, honestly, with the wideness of it, I wouldn't even consider it a treble clef anymore. We'll see what we can do with it. I mean, we might be able to mess around with it and make it a treble clef, but let's just see how high up we can get this part. So if I go to front view, if this is halfway up between these two boxes, our next element should realistically be between this line right here. So between this this thicker white line, we should keep it under that. If we're trying to like kind of keep forces somewhat, like consistent. So we just have to create it sharply. Oops, I missed. So then what if we just did this? And then we went to the right view. And then we just unchecked that and then just took this down. So it'd be like a turnaround with a pop of air off of it. And we can, boom. All right, now let's see what the forces say. Whoa, okay. All right. Well, we'll see. This could be interesting. NoLimits started to be really dumb, so we're just going to kick off from the start. So we got the break and wave turn. Got some sideways airtime. Go up a Maverick Maverick Airtime Hill. We'll go down, hit the second launch. Go up into the Tophat. 95 to 97 degrees. And then we'll go up into an Outer Bank, which is probably negative 0.8 or negative 1 Gs. I'll find out when we go through it. And then at a turn. And then we will go through a Deathroll into a high-speed low-to-the-ground turn, and then flip into a whatever we're about to make this. So, what if... Well, what if it dived? Like, what if instead of just a normal turn down, it just dives? So we can have it go underground, maybe? And we can go up into a 0G roll that goes into the brakes. So no slow barrel rolls. We have like a full-on high-speed 0G roll. But we'd only be able to generate that speed if we go underground because the track's right there and we can't go over it. So we would have to go under. So let's see. This is pretty crazy. All right. Let's see. If I add some rolls, and we can see, we can base the speed off of how banked the turns are. So we're 68, so it's still maintaining speed. 77. So we're getting there. All right, 77. That's not what we want. Oh, 95. All right. Then we can 45 and then see where it lands. 100. And then that will be 3. So then I assume the rest would be 1 or 0. Whoa. Now that's kind of crazy. I am also, like, as we building this, I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I'm building as I go, and this is basically how I go about every coaster. Now, every now and then I will have a layout or idea for a coaster in mind, and that's what I'll run with. But for the most part, I'll start, and I'll just think of some bizarre type of layout or something that would be very interesting to see built, and then I'll run with it and see what happens. But there are times, like, this is probably a lot more bank now. Yeah, so it can. This should be bank more. It's 87, yeah. And it should dive. And then it will go under. And then it should come up into a high-speed 0G roll into the brakes. So, let's go ahead and do that. First off, let's check the forces. So, definitely could be higher in G forces. Because I like an intense ride. I know not everybody does, but sometimes I maintain a pretty tame ride. But, you know, something like this during a tutorial, you can always ease up easier than going more extreme. So I like to go typical Intamin style. They're my favorite manufacturer, so I have to go ahead and do some intenseness. I don't know what to call it. I just love Intamin's rides. They've always delivered. I mean, they might not be the most reliable, but when they are reliable, they make some of the best rides on the planet. RMC's a very close second, but I will say Alan Schilke's my favorite designer, but Intamin's my favorite manufacturer. So, I mean, Joe Drapes is coming up there too. Joe Drapes is really making a spot after the Airy Force 1 at Fun Spot. Oh, like he's really getting in there. And then with RMC Wildcat at Hershey Park, I'm pretty sure he's going to be the designer of that, but we'll see. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Alan already retired, so happy old little man. All right, this is going to be a high speed slowdown. All right, we're not going to worry about that though. How many? All right, so we got 0 Gs basically. So this is perfect because we're going. Oh, no. Okay, well, this is an easy fix. You just make all of these strict. Oh, let me explain because I'm just going. So you see how close the track is. That would not work as a height envelope. So we were going to do that. And we can just simply raise up these. And that should help. If not, well, dang. Actually, you can't really tell unless you freeze it, because then you can't really tell from track proportion. So, let's see. Oh, no, that'd be a good head chop. That's a hand chopper, though. It's pretty good. And then that's heading straight for the station. So, see, I wish I could just ask now and get input now. Like, would y'all rather a super high-speed airtime hill or a heartline roll? But I can probably assume that a heartline roll, a high-speed heartline roll, kind of like what Air Force One's gonna have, would be a lot more thrilling than just airtime, because we already have a strong airtime ejector hill right there, and we don't want to be repetitive. We want it to feel like its own ride and nothing feel like the same. So that's another thing I shoot for in most of my rides when I'm doing them, is I don't want one element to feel like another. So I really shoot for different feelings in elements. Like the Outer Bank turns full, it's a sustained ejector. This is a quick, or this little zigzag element, it's a quick pop of ejector. We got this, which is sideways ejector, but it's like a sideways quick pop. The Outer Bank is also a sideways quick pop, but it's sustained. So it has a slight difference to it, and it's also taken differently. I just really shoot for variety on my rides, because if there's no variety, then the ride will feel repetitive. I haven't ridden Steel Vengeance, not taking any shots at Steel Vengeance. I haven't ridden it. I've ridden Iron Gwazi. That's my number one right now. But eventually I will get around to riding Steel Vengeance. I went to Cedar Point back in 2017, and Steel Vengeance was under construction. It didn't even have a name yet. It was just RMC Mean Streak. That's what it was being labeled as, because there was no name given. So I saw it under construction, but never got to ride it. And then literally a year later, when it opened, I kept hearing, oh, it's the best coaster ever. And I'm like, dang, I should have just waited an extra year. But, oh well. I'll be back eventually. Let's see. Because I have to, let's depump these. Hopefully it does not affect too much. But I will have to end up coming back and adding a tunnel to this, because that is definitely going underground. I'm pretty sure if I freeze this, let's see. Oh yeah, like that. I mean, that's really close. That's really close, actually. Let's see, because I don't know how I feel about that. That's actually really close. So if I have the train there and it's up, actually it wouldn't hit, but it would be another Pantheon, a 6'4" height requirement, and that's no fun. I was literally in line for Pantheon, and I've seen a bunch of people being told you can't ride it, you're too tall, and it's just not cool. Like, I feel like everybody should have the opportunity to ride an amazing ride. So, I mean, I'm going to keep it that way just because it's not a real ride. It's a tutorial on certain things. Honestly, I don't even feel like it's a tutorial at this point. It's literally a, let's see how I build it. And I will end up making a lot more of these. It's just timing and all that. I just got to get that right. So let's try and finish this out with a high-speed heartline roll into the brake run. But we got to make sure we're going in with a, because we have 0 Gs. That's freaking nice. All right, so we come up an airtime hill, and then you. Oh wait, so that can be turned more that way. So. Do I need this? Let's find out. Oh, there. Okay, that's pretty nice. All right, look. Okay, based off the looks of it, I feel like as much as I could, other than the top hat, obviously. I mean, the top hat and the brake run. I feel like for the most part, I've kept it as diagonal as possible and tried to cover every aspect of not building straight left and right. So hopefully this helps a little bit with designing like that. If not, I promise I will do my best to do better and try and explain more. Because all I want to do is like help you guys, because it's me learning NoLimits. When I was learning it, there was nothing like, there was no tutorials on YouTube or anything. It was literally, back when I started NoLimits, all that there was were NoLimits 1 recreations. There wasn't even like custom rides that people were building or like their own type of rides. Like, it was all recreations. So, I mean, everything that I've learned on this program has basically been trial and error. Just trying and seeing what works and what doesn't, and just hoping for the best, really. So we've concluded that, brought that together. So now that we have this, let me go ahead and track. Actually, with the tunnel here, it might actually divide it so it's not as much of a head chopper. But let's see. We can go to modern spline, tunnel. We can do, let's do rectangular concrete. And then we can click here, and then we can add the double spline. Single, I mean. Oops. I don't even know terminology. Dang. Oh, restricted. That's still good. And from that point, so I'll click this. We'll go to modern single spine. And then at this point, we will add brakes. And then the way to really know what you're doing with brakes, we could do modern spine. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing. When you're finishing a coaster, the thing you do with brakes is you could double click, and you can my main, if like, I don't know if anybody pays attention to this small of a detail, but most of my coasters I slow down to 6 miles an hour. This depends on what I'm about to show you, but like, let's say we go to that and we go to speed combs. It's gonna go based off of the middle of the train. So if we look at the middle of the train that's there, there's still a good chunk ahead of it. So that means when the train finally slows down, the cart will actually be in the station already, and we don't want that. So I can either slow it down faster or slow it down less. So I'll do it faster. I'll do 1G, and that should be good enough, and that should slow it down. And now we have a complete coaster. Let's check some statistics. 3,665 foot coaster with a total height of 174 feet. That's actually pretty good. For considering what we did, 3,600 feet, that's solid. That's really solid. So let's test this and see if building off of forces, it worked out. So let's click this, and we'll hit X and W to even out with the middle of the track after hitting Q. Hitting Q puts you in flyby mode, and then from there you can use W and X to go down and forward, and then you can line yourself up with the track. So we got the first launch, little pop of air. Like the second one, we got sideways air time. A little bit of air time. We got this, which is going to be a monster killer air time. And then into the second launch. Right under the brakes. Front row will get a good pop of air right there. Back row will get ejected in the back. With the outer bank. Here comes the Deathroll. That's the first time I've actually seen that test. That actually went pretty good. But there are some spots that I'm noticing. For example, the correction right here from banking to 0. That I have to adjust a little bit. So let's take this, go 13 in there, and then we can go to the station and just go backwards instead of forward and going through the whole layout. So we got the whole 0G roll. Now we can go to none. And then yep. All right, so that seems like it's about it for at least building this. And I feel like for the most part I did keep it relatively diagonal, I guess you could say. There's not many straight parts. You got this one that goes along the line, but that's the brake run in the station. You got the Tophat, which I feel like a Tophat is a lot easier to explain this way, going straight across rather than diagonal. So I explained that way. I feel like that was the best way to do it. because you can apply everything else I told you about diagonal stuff with Tophat. Same thing applies. Every other element, yeah, that it hit about right. So then now we can come in here, because I'm noticing this now. You can add our vertexes in between so we can really smooth it out and finish this off. Boom, element depump, and let it do its thing. It should look like almost a perfect circle, honestly. Yeah, it looks pretty solid. Are the forces consistent? Not really, but let's see how it flows through it in track view. Because this, I'm noticing this. We'll go to 2 degrees. Notice that. Okay, you might notice it, you might not. So if I go here and I go to 0, you'll notice the slight wobble to the left and then right before it centers. Like, I know it's so subtle, but you could see it. Me simply clicking this and going 2 degrees makes it not wobble and makes the brake run smoother. So if we go through, boom, done. So now, let's add our finishing touches, and then we can test it again. Alright, so before we do our test, let's go ahead and add our final touches. I'm not going to really worry about the supporting. I'm not going to worry about theming or supporting, at least in this tutorial, because I feel like my last tutorial, it covered everything, but it covered the basics, and that's enough to get you through. I'll end up making a more extensive tutorial on custom supports and theming later on, like how to import 3D models, how to create your own things, literally based off of the support panel. If you've seen my Velocicoaster recreation, everything in there was designed off of the support panel. I did everything off of the support panel. Let's finish our touches up. We'll click this. We will go to track and then style settings. And typically Intamins have their walkways on the left, so we're just going to do that. We're going to click and do left and then transparent, and then boom, right here we'll do left and right because it's the brake run. And I think that will cover it. So if we freeze it and try it out, we can see how it looks. So let's see. Oh, I didn't even change the color of that, but oh well, I can always go back and change that. So let's see how this turned out. Alright. I mean, there's definitely some spots that could be touched up better, but this is not a video on touching up the finest of detail. I'll probably end up doing a tutorial on that at some point, and I'll probably end up using one of my tutorial coasters to do that, but I can go over all the very fine line tuning that I kind of put into my coasters right before I publish them and theme them and stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say theme them, but like, what do you call it? Like, putting scenery around and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure that covers almost everything. Now let's just watch it off-ride, and I think that will conclude this tutorial, honestly. Because I don't know what else there is to cover other than my bonus, which will be coming up in a minute. I know this is another extensive tutorial. I really did tell myself, I was like, alright, I'm going to condense all of this into a 10-minute video. And I played myself, because here we are. I don't even know how long this video is, but I'm pretty sure you're looking at the time now and you're like, damn. But yeah, this is definitely not a 10-minute thing. But hopefully you've learned a little bit more. Again, this is all based off of you seeing the original tutorial that I made. But this basically branches off more of that. So, I mean, it should help a little bit. If not, if there's any questions you have, just let me know, and I will be happy to answer them and get back to you as quick as possible. Oh, that was smooth. But really, this is, yeah, that's about it. I will end up doing a tutorial on importing custom trains and stuff like that. I'm still trying to figure out how to do the new gen Intamin track, but when I figure that out, trust me, I will definitely put a tutorial out for it, because I have not seen a tutorial, so I feel like it's going to be another thing that I got to figure out myself. But that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I tried my best to be as diagonal as I've been saying. As you see, I've tried to keep everything. The only parts I kept straight were the parts that I felt like you can apply what I've showed most of this tutorial for, like a Tophat, brake run, and stuff like that. Very simple stuff to adjust and put into the 2D straight top. But my other tutorial and my other tutorial covers supporting for the most part. It covers the very basics. I'll do an extensive tutorial on both supporting and theming eventually, probably within the next month or so. Doing a lot right now, just trying to get everything together on top of doing YouTube and creating coasters. So trying to keep everybody entertained. So doing what I can, but we'll just see how everything goes. Hopefully this helped, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was somewhat entertaining, just hearing me ramble on while putting pieces together. But I really appreciate you watching. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy it and want to see more content like this, because I will definitely be uploading more tutorials and more of my designs and concepts and stuff in the near future. Very near future, actually. If you have any questions, again, as I've said throughout the video, just put them in the comments. Don't hesitate. I will gladly reach out, help as much as I can. And also, if you would like a little bit more help, or maybe want to share ideas, feel free to ask for my Discord. I will gladly invite you. We can chat and talk about coaster designs. I can help you out there and see what you can create and help you out with your ideas or designs or whatever. And yeah. If this has helped, just let me know, and I'm glad to make another tutorial for you guys. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Alright. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching the tutorial. I hope I was able to help in some way, shape, or form. As I said earlier, I was going to have a bonus clip, as I usually do in my tutorials. This one just happens to be Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure, and how I went about this insane project that I decided to take on and go way too all out for. But yeah, let's look and see what we have here. So first off, we have the custom trains with, you know, people on it. Obviously, it's not working out right this second. I built all the walls and all of this. All of this was built in the support section. All of it was done with supports. If I go up to coaster and I go to this one, I believe, and I unfreeze it, you can see every node that I've placed and put together to bring this whole thing to life. As you see, we have walls and nodes and nodes. I built the walls out of the supports. All the raptor paddocks were built out of supports. A lot of time and focus was put into it. But if I freeze this, we have this, which looks completely different than what you would expect from a support tab. But the idea of creativity that you can get from a support tab, I saw the opportunity and ran with it and got this design right here. Theming wise, literally everything was just angling rocks I took the rock slabs and just started throwing them together. Started building the rock formation that you would see for Velocicoaster. And actually, let's just do this. So we have the rock formations. I even imported custom Velociraptors to really add to the feel of the entire aesthetic of Velocicoaster, because this is like actually a phenomenal ride, beginning to end phenomenal. It's the absolute best themed coaster I've ever been on and experienced. Highly recommend anybody watching the tutorial who hasn't already ridden it to go out and ride it yourself, because it is phenomenal. It's a great ride. Intamin and Universal did an amazing job on it, and it took me quite some time to get everything right, because I mean, I wanted to get everything as close to realistic as possible. So I really spent a lot of time focusing on that. I was going to go back and add sound effects and go way all out for it, but I wanted to meet my deadline that I was setting for myself, because if I didn't, then I probably would have never uploaded it. So I had a deadline, so I set it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to post it then. I'm done. I'm calling this the end of it. So I went ahead and did that. But this is pretty much Offride. You got the custom trains, you got the people on it, and it just turned out so well. It just turned out great. But yep, this is pretty much what I spent a lot of time on getting done, and this is the bonus clip. I'm gonna go ahead and stop doing that and I can walk around. You can see, like, I tried to get every little detail as close to possible. Scaling and everything. You could be able to see it come through here. You see it launch and go up. There it goes. You can see it go up. Ooh. Through here. So you go down in down there. You'll see you go over the Tophat. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I feel like that's the best way I can go over like the bonus clip, is just how much effort you can, or everything that I put into this is just. I'll go over stuff like this and how I went about it in the future. Custom supports, custom buildings, custom everything, dealing with supports. It's definitely a tedious thing, that's for sure. But in the end, it pays off, it's worth it, so it's rewarding. So I'll go over this in a future video. Right now, I got this tutorial out, so hopefully in some way, shape, or form, I was able to help. And any questions, just throw them in the comments, and I will respond to you as soon as I can. I will make sure I can respond. I don't like not responding. I like to help out as much as I can. But thank you for watching. And yeah, I guess I'll see y'all in the next tutorial, whenever that will be. Probably really soon. See ya.